Okay, folks, just to let you know the order of which we will be doing the meetings today, we'll start with the special open council and then recess it, going into open GP, open finance, open council, that'll be reconvened, and then the closed GP. So with that, I will call the open council meeting to order and recess it until after the open and closed GP meeting and the open finance committee meeting. All right, so turning to the general purposes committee meeting, the open agenda, I'll call that to order. May I have a motion on the minutes? Moved. Discussion, all those in favor, any opposed, that's carried. The Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada funding cuts. Any discussion on that? Anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add. We're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks.
Just a minute, let me turn it.
Yeah, thanks very much for the report. It's actually a very, very good report laying out the issue. However, in order to embellish the report, I think metrics in terms of the exact funding, I know they may not want to share it with the organization of Richmond's critical. It's great to go and say, well, you got to give funding, et cetera, but how does it impact your community? We know this impacts everybody across Canada, but on page 9, you've listed 6 groups. What is the amount? And I think we need that. We can't go on behalf of, let's say, Chimo, and to be quite frank with you, it was a $5,000 bill, like we could write it out of council contingency, but it's $500,000, we have crisis here, okay? There's a crisis in Richmond. So I think we need that in terms of the strength, and any of the strength going to UBCM or wherever. I really think it. The other thing is, as well, we got 13 recent immigrants. Richmond was, and maybe still is, you may be able to check, the mainstay of immigrants coming off the plains, especially the Ukrainians, the Iranians, coming right out of YVR. They're at the Ramada Inn, it's full. They're at the Quality Inn, it's full. Our hotels are being used as a first stream before they go to Maple Ridge or Chilliwack or wherever they are. Many of them move from here after the 3 months to other communities up the valley. They get rent, subsidy. I don't know all the details. You would know it better than I do. But, Your Worship, I really support this 100%. But I really feel we could do a little bit more in preparation before we go forward. And it's something we would need as well, because some of these same organizations may come to us when they're overwhelmed. And we need to be able to say, we can help you, or we can't help you, and this is the way you should go. So with that, Your Worship, I will support it. I thought very good report, but I thought those components were critical.
So the further information you're looking for is on GP 9, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Metrics in terms of amounts.
Just the amounts for each of those. So that can be supplemented.
And number serviced, and who, because we are tied directly off
Number serviced by each of those funds?
each of those groups. We're serviced directly off of YVR. When they come to the airport, they're coming straight to Richmond.
All right, so if you could supplement your information before it gets to council, because it'll go to council next week. Councillor Heat.
Let me just start off where Councillor McNulty was referring to. Myself, when you look at that matrix on table 1 there, I'm really concerned, and I see that you don't, at the time of writing, you didn't have a total. Do we have any round figure where it could be and how much the reduction to Richmond is going to be? Because you talk about 13,000 refugees that are affected by this in Richmond. Do we have a roundabout financial figure?
Through the chair to Councillor Heat, yes. We will be able to gather this information before the council meeting next week.
Do you have any idea what it could be? Is it in hundreds of thousands of dollars or in the millions?
It would be more. It would be in over $1 million.
Over $1 million? And just arbitrarily cut it? That's it? Gone? A little bit still goes to the school board? But all these other ones that have had phenomenal success in dealing with these refugees that come into Canada, they're gone? And is there any ability for the provincial government to pick up on this, or are they trying to download it to us to do?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, at this point in time, the funding reductions have happened. They took effect April 1st, and all of the organizations have been notified.
Very disappointing. And I'm not holding my breath for UBCM, but I am holding my breath, Mayor, that your letter to the federal government and, copied to our MPs here may sway this a little bit, because this is very concerning.
Last year, when we had the chance to talk to Justin Trudeau and he came to Richmond, he asked what your concerns were, and of course, Mayor Brody brought up the dikes. But then number two was refugees. The 33% of the beds in Richmond House, for example, were refugees and asylum seekers. And he seemed a little surprised by that, but I'm particularly surprised that knowing that they would cut the funding. So again, with the chart, we need numbers. And I noticed Richmond House isn't on here. Is there a reason that you don't, at least for information, include that?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we didn't include that because they do not receive IRCC funding.
Oh, they
So
don't?
this only showed the organizations that were affected by IRCC funding.
Okay,
changes.
so the provincial government then funds Richmond House along with Richmond?
I might defer that to.
Kim, can you help us out on that one?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, the funding for Richmond House comes from BC Housing. So it's provincial funding. When refugees access the shelter, they are using shelter spaces that are funded through the funding that's for shelter services.
Are you aware if it's still 33% of the residents are asylum seekers and refugees?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, we do have a inquiry into Richmond House to see what the current status is for the number of refugees accessing the shelter.
Okay, while it may not be pertinent to this, I think it sends a message that, this is where we started from, was people ending up in the shelter and then they end up needing all these services. So I think it just makes it more real when you actually have a body count.
Through your worship to Councillor Day, yes, we will try our best to have that number for you for next week.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, may I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you, staff. That brings me to the referral response to release of closed council information. And if we get into matters of legalities, we're going to have to recess the meeting and go into close. So, yes, Claudia.
Thank you, Mayor Brody. I have nothing further to add, but happy to answer any questions on the report.
All right, Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. And Claudia, I want to thank you. I appreciate the report that you did. We had a conversation early today. You know what my concerns are, and I'll just, so everyone knows that I think what you've come up with of the quarterly reporting on looking at closed meetings and releasing what is necessary. And I thank you and our law department for some of the material that was provided, even the previous policies that date back to 2006 and 1995. And I know there was one counselor that was still here. I think he was here in 1895 and he's still here. That's not me, that's Councillor McNulty.
We thought it was you.
Yeah, thanks. But, so here's the concern I have. And, following and reading back on the advent of how we got to where we are right now on these closed meetings, we know that the provincial government is looking at this. We know that there's been some legal findings with respect to this. And we know what's required to be released right now. Originally, when we brought this up, we talked about having some type of regular process, standard operating procedures on how we actually do this. And as the mayor pointed out back then, we do it for specific things such as people being appointed to committees and those things. I can tell you right at the outset, I'm not looking to release that intricate, confidential information that we as a governing body have. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in releasing other information with respect to that. Where I'm going on this is I think we've got to go a little further than just a quarterly review to report out and to counsel on what's going to be released. I think, and you make a notation here, that a council member can ask that copious minutes be taken. The point I want to make here is I think we have to have more comprehensive minutes of the closed meetings and identifying the vote, which you tell me we do, we just don't release the identification. Those are the two areas that I would like to see us expanding on releasing closed meeting decisions. So it's the minutes, a more comprehensive, valued set of minutes, along with the vote.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I would agree that when it comes to some personnel issues and with financial, how much, we're paying for property and all that, those things, people and money, those things should stay confidential. But having said that, once something has been decided on, I think that the minutes of the meeting and the vote count should be released. And the reason being is that, we stand on our voting record. It's who we are as councillors, and I don't see any harm, because it's eventually going to become public anyhow, to show the vote count and to show the comprehensive minutes.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. My comment to staff is in gratitude for the memo that we received and the table on the back of it. This is the memo that came May 26th. Additional information not in our package. And it's the municipal scan that shows the municipalities and what they do when it comes to disclosure of closed council information. I just see the best mix that we could perhaps get out of this is we could follow what Vancouver and Burnaby does when it comes to closed information regularly disclosed. And both those municipalities do have regular disclosure after a quarterly review, where we only have it as when required. So maybe it would help us get to a next stage of release if we had a set date when we review that. And then when it comes to what Surrey does on the disclosure information available on the website, they actually have a location where you would go that says information released from closed meetings, as opposed to what we do and many others is it's tucked into the minutes from a council meeting under mayor's announcements, where I think it'd be a better accessibility if it was put in a specific location. And then finally, Surrey also, the response was yes when it comes to capturing the debate and the discussion, where Richmond, we only capture the council decision. So I think there's kind of three ways we could make some improvements for transparency. Thanks.
Well, in looking at the other cities, first of all, in talking about what is suggested, the last bullet of what is suggested to keep the public informed, information is provided for public disclosure and announced it can be uploaded for public viewing to the city's website under separate sections. So that is part of what is suggested. Now, in terms of none of the cities disclose the closed council minutes And there is good reason which we can go into in closed meeting if you want to hear the legalities of that. But in terms of the voting record, nobody talks about the voting record in closed, except for Burnaby, which is a partial release, which says if it's carried unanimously or it's carried if there was opposition. I don't think there's any, I don't think that gets us too far, but I don't see any harm in it either if people want that. Now, in terms of do closed minutes capture the council debate or discussion? The only city that does is Surrey, and I think that there are legal reasons why we want to limit that strictly. Again, we can go into it in closed if you want. But also, there's no context. What would be in the closed minutes? I mean, because there's no disclosure of the report. You're not giving the context of the pros and cons of the entire situation. So I don't think that's the way to go. So as I say, I think I can live with saying whether it was carried unanimously or just carried without disclosing who voted for what, because nobody else discloses anything, and just I don't think that we should be recording that discussion. I think it's worked well over the last couple decades, and I'm loath to do more. Councillor Heed.
Yes, thanks once again. Hopefully this is the last time, Mayor, I can comment on this. I really don't care what the other cities are doing. You know, we are Richmond, and we should be doing what's right for our constituents here in Richmond. So I could give a damn what Surrey, Vancouver, Burnaby are doing. I just think we need to be more transparent, and I recognize we're in a different era right now, Mayor, than some people here. And yes, it's worked well so far, but I can tell you, there's a lot of frustration with our taxpayers, our constituents here, with respect to the lack of transparency. I just think we could probably bring this forward a little more so we can have that transparency. And I'll tell you, what I say in a closed session, I don't mind it getting out, because I would say that in an open session too. And I think that that is our integrity as representatives of the people here in Richmond. And I think we truly have to be open and transparent with it. So I could give a damn what the other municipalities think. We need to do something in Richmond so there is more credibility, more integrity in our process here.
I don't think we should do something just because another city does or doesn't do it. But there are reasons why cities do and don't do it. And again, we can only go so far in discussing this. But what I will say is we do care about what is said in public and what is kept in closed meetings. I can think of some very, very dynamic discussions that have taken place in closed meetings, and it would be unfair to people around this table, and it would be unfair to people who are involved and to the issues that are being discussed to have that enumerated. I think you just cut to the bottom line, that's the decision, and that's all you need. Councillor Day.
Yeah, you know, if you get documents from the federal government, if there's something that legally could be a problem, they just black out those lines. Why couldn't we do that? So release it, except for particularly bad parts that would be considered, you know, something you could, you know, hire a lawyer to sue the city for. So maybe it's possible to just release everything that we can and just black out the comments that, you know, for whatever reason are not really fully resolved. And we all know there's issues that may never be resolved in the city. But I do strongly feel that the vote record should be named, each and every councillor's vote.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, and through the chair. First, thanks for the report and some of the other information that we've had. I agree with the notion of, as much transparency as we practically can and legally can, and I think everybody would agree with that. In terms of legal precedents and the legal analysis in getting into releasing comprehensive minutes, I think that's something that I'd be interested in having a further conversation, and that might be enclosed with legal advice. But in terms of the report and the recommendations and quarterly reviews that some other cities do, I think that's wise and prudent, and I think that's a good step in the right direction. In terms of releasing information about the decisions that we make, I too don't really have a personal problem with anybody knowing what my vote was, whether it was closed or in public. So that's something I'd be willing to look at. I don't know what the legal opinion on that would be for sure. Uploading the documents, I think, is also good on a quarterly basis so people can have as much information as possible. So I think one of the problems with minutes that are too comprehensive, I guess this, I don't want to get into it too much, is that sometimes depending on the matter that's being discussed, if it's going to be public, it might, for some people, curtail the conversation, and it might interrupt with the free flow of thought, especially if you're dealing with something particularly sensitive with regard to labor or legal issues. So, and when it comes to redacting information and crossing things out, blacking them out, that could be one option, but it's also very labor intensive and subject to error as well, or redacting too much information. With that, I'll be supporting what's before us right now. Thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the report. I think it's valuable to get as much transparency as we can out. I don't think that our process has lacked integrity because we haven't put the information out there. I think it's clear the choices we make and the votes of council. And I think it brings some cohesiveness to council when council votes for something as a whole. I wonder if having too much information, too much in the minutes creates a situation where either people will be afraid to ask questions or afraid to talk about things, or create an opportunity where or alternatively, they stand on a soapbox and pontificate about something, and because that's their opportunity to do it, because they know the minutes are going to come out. My fear also, if we have something where you have redacted minutes where people are crossing out, I think blacked out minutes looks worse from a transparency perspective than just putting out what happened in the meeting or a summary of what happened in the meeting and generalized comments. So to me, when you start blacking stuff out, it looks more aggressive and that something's trying to be hidden than that you are truly coming forward and being transparent. So those are kind of some of my thoughts on this. I appreciate the regularity of once every 3 months. I don't know that in some cases we don't even have closed meetings in some of our committees in a whole year. So the volume of closed meeting minutes aren't really that much. So to be going in all the time to try and strip out whether or not one thing should come out or something from a closed meeting seems like a lot of extra work for not a huge amount of gain, but thank you.
All right, well, Councillor Galanders, then Councillor McNulty.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for the report, and I agree with much of what's been said. Definitely it could be problematic with very detailed minutes. Obviously, people could be misquoted, there could be disagreements every time the minutes are, no, I didn't say it like that, I didn't say that. It could be an administrative nightmare for sure. But I've always wondered why they are so bare bones, and now I appreciate getting the history as to why they are. But sometimes, like when I'm reviewing the minutes, it's, well, what was that discussion about again? Like I could see having just a discussion ensued regarding blah, 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 just sort of a general, what was going on. And then I don't see any issue with having the vote record, though, as far as who voted against it. We all have our reasons why we may vote for or against something, and you know, and sometimes, well, there was one closed item, I know that I showed up to the meeting like 2 minutes late and the vote was already done before I got here, and I was very much opposed to what it was, but it's not on record that I was opposed because I was in favor since I wasn't here. But, you know, once those are released and someone asked me, well, why didn't you vote against that? I'd be like, actually, I wasn't there. Or it could say on the minutes, you know, Councillor Glanders was absent for the vote. You know, you could have sort of some basic information like that so that people can understand what went on. And I definitely agree with the quarterly review and look at what's going out. And because people have their reasons to vote against something, and I think we have to be able to stand behind our vote. So I don't have any issue with releasing the names of who voted in opposition of something. And I think it's important for transparency's sake that that's released.
I just want to note that people coming in and out, whether it's staff or councilors or me, that's noted in the sequence of the minutes. So if one person was missing for that, it would show up on the minutes. That much is clear. Let's see now, Councilor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'm not going to sit on the fence on this one. Times have changed. You know, you can laugh and go back and say what we did before and everyone can joke about it, but you weren't there. Things have changed an awful lot since then, and we also had councils that made very definite decisions, and staff followed suit. I'm just going to make the comment, first of all, I think we have too much enclosed. I think we should have more in open, to be quite frank with you. But more importantly, we only put the success down. We don't put what else was considered in the closed. And if it's a 5-4 vote, it's not a majority, okay? I mean, it is a majority of one. Okay, well, the other 4 may have had good points, and those are never listed. And I think sometimes the alternative or the contrary has merit, because you may go back to it later. And that was one of the things for me, supporting those kinds of things. Confidentiality, well, what is confidentiality? The vote gets out very quickly. There are people that let it go out. You'd be surprised how fast it leaves the confidence of this room. Let's call a spade a spade. So I guess my concern in the minutes would be the matters and reasons why. If we vote to spend $25 million in such and such, and we borrowed it from the Bank of Nova Scotia, we have reasons there why we borrowed it from Nova Scotia in our, well, yeah.
That would be an open matter,
Well,
borrowing.
even if we were doing it in camera where we have things that are hidden because we were considering the options from the, before I was interrupted, from the other banks, because Nova Scotia gave us prime +1 and the others were prime +3. So that's why we went with Nova Scotia. That could be recorded in the minutes anyhow. I'd like to see more detail. It doesn't have to be much more, but the contrary put in there as well. The quarterly review, that's fine by me on it, but I think we've got to think times have changed, and I think we've got to come up with what people are asking for out there, not what we think.
Well, I
I
asked,
don't know what else is going to be, what the alternative is to this resolution. If somebody has a resolution, we should get it on the floor so we can debate it and look at it.
well, first of all, I want to get the recommended motion on the floor, and then we can amend it.
Oh, okay, well,
Okay, someone move it?
I'll move that.
Moved and
Get it on the
seconded.
floor and let's know what we're talking about.
Okay, but we'll obviously be talking about amendments.
Okay.
What goes into closed is a matter, it's stated in the report, and it's also approved by council when we go into close, that we approve closure compliance in the agenda. So if something isn't appropriate for closed, we have a closed debate on it, and then it can go open. So if there is in fact too much that is enclosed, then people should be taking a harder look. I don't believe the fact that people are breaching their duty of confidentiality is any reason to throw things wide open. If people are breaching their duty of confidentiality, it is against the legislation. It's contrary to our code of conduct, and it's a lot of other things as well. So again, that to me doesn't justify doing more than we think is wise. So, Councillor Heed.
Just to advise the chair, I'll be making an amendment.
Okay, we'll do it now. Now's the time. It's on the floor. Just a minute. There you go.
First of all, I just want to correct a few things. When we do minutes for meetings, we have an opportunity before, when we receive those minutes, to vote on them, whether they're correct or incorrect. And Carol, Councillor Day, brought that to our attention just recently on a particular matter. So my amendment relates to recording votes of all decisions made in closed meetings, and that the minutes capture the essence of the debate that has taken place.
Well, okay, let's take that one by one. First of all, you want to amend the recommendation to say that the votes are to be recorded and disclosed. Is that,
Mayor, and I just want to make this absolutely crystal clear. I'm not talking, and whether we have an opportunity to discuss this in closed with our solicitor, I'm not talking about that highly confidential information. I'm not going anywhere near that. That remains enclosed and all that. I'm talking about those other matters. Yes, Mayor.
all right, so the amendment is to record the vote. So just so we understand, it would say, well, like we do for the open minutes, so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so were opposed.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Correct.
Everyone else is in favor.
We, I believe, Claudia, we capture that right now. We just don't release that.
Through the chair, that is correct. The closed minutes capture
Just the decision.
members who are voting in opposition in those cases under the recommendation. The actual minutes, we are required to record opposition. Just in the actual minutes,
So
Mr.
it
Chair.
records it, okay, so it records
Opposition
it.
is noted.
What you're saying, Councillor Heed, is that we should disclose it.
Correct. On matters where we disclose, for example, in the quarterly report, if it comes back to us to disclose this, we should disclose the votes.
So for this, okay, the resolution in due course would be to release such and such a report and the decision and the recording and the voting pattern. That's
Correct.
what you're saying. It's
Yes.
a voting pattern. Okay? So, no, that's on the floor. We got, are you speaking on the amendment? Okay. Councillor Hobb. I'm sorry. Sorry? Oh, we'll get that. We'll get that. Go ahead.
Thanks, and through the chair. I agree with the amendment in terms of recording names when the report's released. Just one quick question. There's no retroactive component to this. This is a going forward amendment?
I believe we made it, you made a recommendation on the retroactive part of this, correct? In your initial report.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Heed, our intention was that if council were to be supporting the proposed amendment to policy 1019, that we would sort of as a catch-up review 2024 and 2025 for any other matters that potentially could be disclosed that haven't thus far been.
Sure, and thank you for that. Thanks for the clarification. Me personally, I'd have no objection to going back to the beginning of this term when we all started either, but that might not be practical.
Well, yeah, I want to speak to the impracticability of that. I think it is impractical because going forward, you will now know that your vote and presumably maybe the essence of what you've had to say is going to be publicly disclosed. It's not been the case to this point. I think we should just go forward. If so, do we need a specific amendment for that, or is it just that this speaks from now on in terms of the report?
I guess from my point of view, partially yes on releasing the recorded vote, But on those other matters where we've decided, as Claudia said, to go back to 2024, that would just carry on. It just, the votes would be recorded going forward from this date.
Okay.
This
so-
date.
But in, going back to the original recommendation, what is assumed in terms of retroactivity?
That we would review back to 2024. And I should note that that report, once we compile, if there's any additional matters that are potentially available for disclosure, that would come through a closed council meeting first, because we would require council's authority to then formally disclose to the public. So council would still have the opportunity to review all that material if there was any additional items identified for disclosure.
Okay, well, I suggest that let's go through the substantive matters, then we'll have a separate amendment on retroactivity, because I think that that should be very carefully done. So, okay, who we got? Councillor Day. So this is just on the amendment?
Yeah, on the amendment, I think that it's wise to go ahead. And I just want to ask Claudia, Ms. Jensen, one question. If something is like of an extreme nature of confidentiality, it would not be in the quarterly reports, right?
Through the chair, that is correct, Councillor Day, yes.
Okay, because it does rarely happen. So, thank you.
Well, there's many reports where the recommendation is we never disclose it. I mean, that's a regular thing, right? So
Yes.
that's what we're talking about. Okay, so the amendment is to disclose the recorded votes on when a report is to be disclosed, a closed report is to be disclosed, okay? That's the motion, okay? All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, so that is carried. The next item is whether the minutes should be, what, anecdotal, as they are with the open minutes, to disclose the discussion. Did you, Cash, did you want to say something about that?
Mayor,
Just hang on a sec, I'm having problems turning on that mic. Okay.
Capture, I guess I'm just looking for the essence of the debate captured. I'm not looking for line-by-line minutes of everything that was discussed. I'm just looking for the essence of the debate captured. So if someone's reading these minutes, they can understand what was going on with respect to that, and then the vote.
So it'd be the essence of the issue
And
the
debate.
points of debate
Yes, correct.
would be disclosed in the event that there is to be disclosure.
Correct.
All right, so that's moved. Is it seconded? Yeah. Okay. First of all, Councillor Hobbs, then Councillor Liu.
Thanks, and through the chair, yeah, I don't have any issue with the essence of a debate being disclosed. I just want to emphasize that I do think, and you just mentioned it, that it's important that it's certainly not as much as in open and would be less, and I think that's the intent once we get a further handle on what essence is. But I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you. Yes, I think that as long as we get the essence of the issues and the points being made, it's fine. I don't think it needs to be who said what. Otherwise, I think we're going to be fighting over whether or not somebody said something or how they said it, or that they said it with some sarcasm, so that's not what they meant. So I don't think we want a game of he said, she said when we go to approve the minutes, because it will come back in front of us. We approve the release of them, and then they go up. Is that correct, or does it just unilaterally get made by staff?
No.
It comes to us. Yeah, so we don't want a big song and dance when the time comes. We want to agree that they come out, they come forward, those are the issues that were discussed, and this is where we landed.
Yeah, let's just be clear about this. A quarterly review be undertaken by staff of the past closed minutes, et cetera. Following the quarterly review, a closed report will be prepared to seek the authority to disclose whatever can be released. Information is announced. Memo to council will be distributed following each, when no closed meeting matter warrants public release, and in an effort to keep them informed, the public informed, then there'll be public disclosure and announced as part of the open council meeting, and that's uploaded to the website.
Okay.
That's-
Can I make a comment, though? So, so this would behoove all of us to read over the minutes carefully and be sure. There comes the challenge, though, so I remember last year we had a closed community safety meeting, and the minutes from the previous community safety from a whole year prior were now coming up to be signed. So we're going to want the ones that, we're going to want the draft copy available sooner so that it isn't a long time between remembering what happened in the meeting and signing off on them. So I think that's a fair comment. So the draft minutes come forward as soon as they're available. Maybe they're kept in some different category for it. I don't know. But like I said, if in some cases we end up with minutes from a meeting that are a year older, that even an election's happened in between, you can't be confident that the essence has been captured.
Yes, just through the chair to Councillor Liu, in that particular instance, it was only because there hadn't been a closed community safety schedule for a very long time. Hence, those minutes were held off to be passed on to the committee. But certainly, we'll take note of that and pass on this draft closed community minutes to the relevant chair.
Well, and also, I mean, if there's no business for a closed community safety committee meeting, you can still have a closed meeting to approve minutes. And I think that should be done on a regular basis, just keep it up to date. So I'm going to call the question, but I'm going to emphasize what has been said. Put this in the minutes.
Your worship, if I might just clarify one
Yes.
point.
Yes, your mic's not on, Tony.
Your worship, is there another one? This one?
Why don't you come to the table? This is on the amendment?
Yes, your worship.
There you go.
If I may, just to clarify one point, I believe there's a misunderstanding in terms of the disclosure of the minutes. It doesn't matter what the policy is. If council adopts the policy as it's been recommended to be amended, on the understanding that it would only be disclosed if council decides that. A point that's made in the memo is that when you're in litigation, it's coming out. Doesn't matter what council thinks, it's coming out. So council has to be aware of what's captured in the minutes will come out. And I don't think that was made clear. And so the content of what is captured in the minutes may have adverse effects beyond what is currently being contemplated, but I wouldn't want to discuss that in an open meeting.
Well, what I hear is contemplated is actually a fairly cursory summary of just what is the issue, or, what are the main points that are being debated and decided, not who said what, or, that kind of back and forth. Does that change anything?
Well, somebody has to make a judgment call when it comes to transcribing what is the essence. And is that staff? And that essence may be something that has implications. And again, there's only so much I'm prepared to say in an open meeting, but I just want to make it clear that regardless of the policy, even if there is a policy or there isn't a policy, those minutes, as council determines, are recorded, all that will come out. And councilors have to be aware of that.
Okay, I'm just contemplating that it's going to be fairly brief, but Counselor Heed?
Yes, and I'll be fairly brief. And we understand that, even from cabinet point of view, that cabinet stuff can come out. And I guess I just don't want to strike the fear of everyone from a legal position that everything we do, yes, I understand we could be called. I guess my question to you is, does this become FOIable then? Because, you know, I'm viewing this somewhat the same way. So whether we're talking about a legal process that may happen, or in all likelihood an FOI that is submitted.
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, there's two processes to obtain documents. One process is FOI, as you've described, and there are opportunities to redact, there are opportunities to withhold if something is in camera. However, the point that was made in the memo is that when you're in civil litigation, it's a different set of rules. Now, any document that is relevant to the issues raised in the pleadings is disclosable, save and except if it's subject to solicitor-client privilege. But virtually 99% of some of the discussion would not be privileged. And there is a case that I've distributed to council where the city of Surrey, and this is open, this is nothing confidential about what I'm going to say, it's in the decision. The city of Surrey was in litigation. It was a bad faith claim. A single councillor was named personally, and the city was named. And the issue was whether or not the in-camera minutes, as they were, in their entirety, were disclosable, and they were. The determination of the court, as upheld by the Court of Appeal, is it's all coming out. And the consequences, again, hypothetically speaking, if there is an individual counselor that is personally sued for some statement that was made in an in-camera meeting that was captured, whether it be described as essence or it's just in the minutes, that is now evidence against that individual counselor. And the implications of that is if that was said and it constituted a tort, whether it be inducing breach of contract, breach of public office, defamation, whatever, then the issue becomes, will that counselor be indemnified? Were they saying what they said in the course of their city business? And some would argue, no, there's no indemnification. So now the individual counselor is defending themselves in a legal proceeding based on something that was said in closed. And my only point is that, again, council should think of the consequences of the recording of what occurs in closed, because I think there's an expectation that the dialogue, there can be free flow of ideas, not just between council members, but other individuals, whether it be staff or an invitee to closed. They are now captured by that as well. And again, it's not to, it's only just, I was concerned because of the part about in the event of disclosure, and my only clarification is it doesn't matter what the policy says, it will be disclosed, and that's what council needs to be aware of.
But Tony, okay, say we're in closed meeting, and someone says something really bad in some way, okay? It's not in the minutes. The minutes just said there was a discussion on whether it should be A or B. That's it.
And that would be fine.
See, and that's the way Councillor Heed defined it, to my knowledge.
Correct.
And your worship, my only point is staff is going to be given the language of should only capture the essence. So there has to be a judgment call of what the essence is. And my point is that if somebody interprets essence as including some of these statements that I've described hypothetically, then that's in the minutes and that is evidence.
Okay, so then we can add to the motion, and a perfectly valid point, obviously. We can say without disclosing specific dialogue from mayor or councilors. Would that
That would be an improvement. Yes.
Okay?
So whether it's an improvement or not an improvement, we're all liable sitting here right now because it's all publicly recorded. Every time we go down to the chamber and debate, it's publicly available to them. So, I don't have a big issue with this. But if you want to include that, Mayor, go ahead. But I'll tell you, we're liable anytime we go out there and say anything, whether I say anything right now in the next 10 seconds, which I could, or at any other time. We understand that. We certainly understand, or I hope we understand that. We're liable anytime, and there's no
But
protection.
let's say it's something very disparaging about some identified individual. I mean, if we say it here, we're not protected from the rules of libel and slander,
Correct.
from defamation. But if we say that in a closed confidential meeting and it's not minuted, then
Then there's no evidence.
Right.
And then it's the question of, well, what was said, what was the context, et cetera. It's very difficult to use hearsay as a basis to bring a lawsuit.
So
But
that's-
if it's recorded,
Yeah.
then it is evidence.
So that's why I think we should have that phrase at the end, without discussion of specific dialogue by mayor or councilors. Okay? All right, let's call the question then on that. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And by the way, Councilor Howe is not with us. The remaining issue is that of retroactivity. I think it should go forward from now on. Then we know what the rules are. We know what the rules are, and it goes from here, as opposed to there being some feature of it that might have been different had we had these new rules or something. So, Councilor Heed.
Yeah, I understand the complexity involved if we try and have some type of hybrid system. But Mayor, how about a saw if we go back to the beginning of this year? January 2025, because remember, those votes are already recorded.
But
We're
I don't
only
think
into
it's-
we're only into the second quarter now.
I don't think it's fair to record the votes when we're changing the rules. But I can live with going back to the beginning of this year to, put it in. No, let's see, we've already got the minutes right up to date, don't we? So, I think it's gotta be from now on. That's my thinking. Councilor, Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair. Yeah, the saw-off, regarding the minutes, I agree. No retroactivity there. With the decisions going back to the beginning of the year, I don't find that to be too onerous, so I think I could support that, but I'll listen to the rest of the discussion.
Let's see, we've got Councilor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I don't think we should do retroactive minutes as far as the capturing the essence of all the closed meetings over the last couple of years. I think that would be way too much work and also not fair. And yeah, I don't think that was the way we need to go. Our votes are all recorded though, so I never would have voted differently, I personally, thinking it was going to get disclosed or not. My vote's my vote. So I have no issue with, I think that we should going back to the beginning of 2024, if that's what it was, the vote recording should all get published, but the minutes can, as far as capturing the essence, that's a new procedure that can go from now on. But the votes are already there, it's already recorded. That should be part of the disclosure, as far as I'm concerned.
Councilor Day.
Can staff just confirm that the individual votes have been recorded for all of 2024?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, yes, we're required in closed minute discussions to record, and open as well, any member who is opposed.
Okay, I wouldn't want to create like a mile-high, workload for staff. So if the vote has already been recorded and all we have to do is just change it on the website so that it's disclosed, I don't see a problem with that. But when it comes to the essence, I wouldn't want to go back and rewrite all those minutes. I think that would take forever. So I'm good with either way, but I'd be okay with going back to 2024 for the votes and starting with the essence as of January 2025.
Councilor Liu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I stand by everything that I voted. That being said, I'm sure there were times that I might have not voted in opposition because I knew it was going to pass, and because it's sitting in closed minutes, they don't go anywhere. I can't tell anybody about it, so there's no point doing it in many cases. So I'm curious if I went back and rethought about stuff to say, oh, here's one where I might have sat out on the sideline on this one or that one. So I think we should do everything minutes and vote moving forward. I think that's what makes the most sense. Had we known differently, and, you know, maybe the person bringing this forward might have had ideas to bring it forward and behave differently in their meetings leading up to this, but who knows, and who's to say?
Councillor Wolf.
Thanks, yeah, I'm in favor of everything starting now. I'm also fine starting the essence of the discussion or the vote history at the start of this year, and I'm fine with it going back further as well, so.
Councillor Heed.
I just need to respond to the councillor's comments there. I'm the one that brought this forward, and I'm not hiding anything. I could care less. Get the vote out there, but I'm the one that brought it forward, and I'm not hiding anything.
I didn't know anyone suggested that. In any case, my suggestion, based on the discussion we just heard, is that, that the resolutions would have retroactive effect to January 1st, 2025 for the disclosure of votes, but not be retroactive on the issue of of disclosing the essence of the issue being debated. Okay? All right? Someone want to second that? Okay, so, okay, just, I realized I was really stilted, I was obviously thinking it through. Okay, so we would go back to the beginning of this year for who voted for what, how. But in terms of disclosing the essence of the debate, you know, the little distillation, that would go on from now on.
Can you split those up?
Sure. Okay, so that's moved and seconded. Okay, Councillor Glanders.
I'd like to move an amendment that the vote recording goes back to January 1st, 2024. Was the original referral.
An amendment to the amendment? Really? Why don't we have a straw vote? Who wants it to go back to the beginning of last year? Okay, let's do that by consent then. I mean, let's not prolong this.
Okay.
Councillor Au is online and has a comment or question.
Yes, Your Worship. My sense is that, we try to make things simple. If we move forward from now, I think this is the most simple way to do it. Otherwise, we can argue, how about 2024, 2025? I think probably, that will just make things more complicated. So my suggestion is that you just move forward from now.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for those comments. Well, so okay, Councillor Day,
Yeah.
to finish it off.
Okay, so we've already decided, and it's going to go to a vote, that we're going to go back for the vote only to January of 2024. I would like to make an amendment that we go back, that we have the essence of the minutes recorded as of January 2025. So just for this
That
year.
was the original motion. The essence.
Of
Okay.
essence of the minutes, so that we go back
How
with
many
the,
want the essence to go back to January 1, 2025? All right, then we'll do it by consent.
okay,
So retroactivity for the minutes is January 1st, 2025, and, sorry?
yeah, and then,
And the to record the votes, disclose the votes is January 1st, 2024.
Yep.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried with Councillor Liu opposed. Okay, that's it, right? Thank you. Brings us to the next item, ethical implications, et cetera, et cetera. Councillor Heath, I think that's your motion, so go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, and I'm just going to quickly read the background, then make the motion. An important ethical consideration has emerged regarding the participation of council members in votes where personal financial interests may be involved. This concern has gained heightened significance following recent discussions about the appointment of a new director for Metro Vancouver. It is imperative for council members to recognize and declare any potential conflicts of interest transparently. Understanding the delicate balance between collective benefits to council and individual interests, particularly in scenarios such as voting on remuneration changes, adds complexity to this issue. From an ethical standpoint, there are strong positions that a council member who holds a personal financial interest in a matter should refrain from both contributing to discussions and participating in the vote. To ensure the integrity of council's decision-making process, council should seek to determine if there exists any legal precedent concerning this situation. Furthermore, council should explore the possibility of engaging an ethics and/or conflict commissioner for a thorough review of this matter. And I make the following motion, Mayor. That the Chief Administrative Officer investigate the legal precedents surrounding the matter of council members voting on issues with personal financial interests. That the Chief Administrative Officer considers seeking a review from an ethics and/or conflict commissioner to gain further guidance on appropriate actions for council members in similar situations, and that the Chief Administrative Officer report back to council within 3 months.
Well, I'm going to make a few comments about that. First of all, I'm really at a loss to know, I hear what the background is, and then I have a trouble with the motion. The motion is investigate legal precedents surrounding the matter of council members voting on issues with personal financial interest. If that means what I think, if that means direct or indirect pecuniary interest, I mean, there are exceptions to it, and it is up to the individual councillor to make that self-declaration as to having a conflict. I mean, we've seen this, and I think it's important, and I will ask this to be in the minutes. I mean, this came up, this kind of issue came up in relation to the Metro Vancouver appointment, but there's the issue of, we make 9 or have made 9 appointments to Metro Vancouver. How are we, if everybody has a conflict, how are we going to do it? Secondly, it doesn't just relate to Metro Vancouver, it relates to e-comment, it relates to the alternate I have for Translate. So it's to the extent that it's an issue, it's a wider issue, but all the motion says is investigate legal precedents surrounding the matter of council members voting on issues with personal financial interests. If you have a personal financial interest, unless you're in a, you've got an exception, you've got a conflict. And I don't know why we need to refer this. And secondly, it's up to the individual. And if it's up to the individual, I mean, who cares what any ethics or conflict commissioner is going to have to say about it? It's up to the individual. So that's my point of view. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. I look at this a couple different ways. I think, in this situation, the way it's worded is it sounds like Counselor Day shouldn't have been allowed to advocate for herself when she did advocate for herself, and it was fair for her to come forward and tell us why she thought that, she would work hard and do a good job. I think even if neither of us were allowed to vote in the situation, we would have had the same outcome. So, to use valuable staff time to, look at this is a complete waste of time. I think from a broader issue, if we look at it and say, you shouldn't be able to vote for yourself because there might be personal gain, well, then none of us should be able to vote for ourselves in the general election. Is that where we're going to go? Are we going to go all the way with this one? Because it's the same, that you're still voting for yourself. So it is or it isn't. I think it's been hashed out before. I think the idea has been brought up in other venues at Metro and other places. And I think people have decided that, it's fair to vote for yourself. And this is how we're going to do things.
Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. When I've been involved in votes of things in the past, when people are standing for positions, I disagree with Councillor Liu. It's very appropriate to present your resume. You get asked what your resume is, you advocate, you say why you'd be good at the position, but then you do recuse yourself for the vote. Is standard practice for many types of organizations. So that's fine. And and I understand we've done this for forever and didn't really think about it. And it doesn't just have to do with the Metro vote. That's just a recent example. And I could see that, so when the mayor brings forward his list of proposals for who's getting what positions, the ones that are paid, they stand back from the vote. And if only 6 people are voting, then only 6 people are voting. And that just shows the appropriateness of, this is a paid position, so I won't vote for that. And I have no issue with that. I think that would work quite well, and it would be quite, it would be classy and well received and appropriate. The reason why I like the referral is because I think I need to learn more about the legal things surrounding the conflicts, because as you keep stating, Mayor, that it's up to the individual to say if they're in a conflict. But I mean, say you're involved in a huge development in the city, and the vote is, you're going to make a lot of money from that. Generally, people would recuse themselves. But if they don't, and you find out about it, isn't there some sort of an ethical precedent where that person shouldn't have voted on that, and is there something legal that can come from that? And so, I mean, the mayor's saying, no, it's just up to the individual, but I don't mind getting more information on the legalities around being in conflict.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. Ethics and integrity are big words. We throw them around a lot. And it's probably because most of us think they're very important and we value those qualities. And in terms of this motion, there are lots of precedents that exist. There's precedent that exists in this council and its history over the decades, and in other councils and other forms of government and other organizations as well. I think that what's important is that we realize there's a distinction between the typical pecuniary interest or conflict of interest in your personal life, your professional life, where it overlaps with your elected duties or your duties on council. And yes, everybody who has those conflicts should declare those and recuse themselves. And I've seen that in my short time here happen on quite a few occasions. And it's not even necessarily about financial interests. It can also be about overlapping interests when you're on a board or something like that. And I find in any of the little bit of law that I've read about this subject is, yes, it does all depend on the person to make that declaration and come to that realization that themselves that they actually do have a conflict of interest, so they recuse themselves. In certain circumstances, there might be legal recourse for somebody who doesn't, but that's very specific to whatever example you're talking about. I think with this one, and other votes that we have on council regarding other appointments, paid or maybe not even paid, those are all public discussions. So there is a lot of transparency. Everybody is, well, like the last one, that was very public and people were able to witness that. So I think there are some practical considerations to it. If you did have like 5 people interested in a position and we're left with 4 people voting and you end up in a 2-2 tie, so how do you do that? I mean, you could even make it, 7 people interested, which I'm just making for illustrative purposes. But to wrap it up, although I think I can predict what the answer will be based on a legal analysis of this, and that would be that it's not a conflict of interest. That's my opinion right now. I still am not opposed to having a look at it in terms of a referral and seeing what the analysis is, because I've been wrong before. So we'll see how the discussion goes. Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Yeah, it costs us nothing to take a look at this, and I think it's important to get this right. In my opinion, if there are 2 or 3 people vying for a paid position, they should recuse themselves from the vote. It's the only fair way to do. All candidates for that position should declare, well, obviously I'm going to make some money if I get this, so I'm happy to step back and not vote. But when it comes to the alternatives, I mean, I talked to a number of the councillors about the first alternative, second alternative, and a lot of people didn't even know they were a first alternative or second alternative because they never get called to duty. So I'm not worried about that. I think the first director in this case should recuse themselves, but all the others are so insignificant, it's not worth worrying about.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks. I have no problem supporting this to have a look at it. I think we need to clear the air and perception and investigate it. And I'm not going to get into, I'm not going to say, but I don't agree with Councillor Day. Alternate to the alternate to the alternate, it could be you down the road because you are named on it. And if 2 people step aside, you're going to the meeting and you're going to be paid. And you did vote for it to support you. So I think we have to be careful what we start. We're all included because we're all alternates to something. And it does record. So I just want to clarify that. And then the other question is, we focused on the money. What is the conflict? The conflict comes in many ways, and I don't know what the conflict could be. And that's where I think the Ethics Commission, we always think in pecuniary in terms of dollars and cents. It might be, I'm your brother-in-law, or I'm your distant cousin or something, and you got a contract with the city, or whatever, this, that, and I voted for that. I think to clear the air, that's what I'm looking at as opposed to very specifics here, to take it one step higher if we can, because we're all involved in it. And I'd like to hear what others have done in terms of where it is. So from that, I'll support it. I think the resolution's fine to move forward with it, get a report, and let's deal with it at that time, have the discussion, and then put it to work, or put it on the shelf, whichever.
Section 102 of the charter says, if you got a conflict, you must not use the member's office or attempt to influence in any way a decision, recommendation, or other action to be made or taken at a meeting where there's a disclosure of conflict, or, it goes on to say you're not to affect the vote in any way. So you can't, if you have a conflict, you have a conflict. You can't come back from that. Either you do or you don't. To the idea that this costs nothing, we're going to have to, we can't have this done by our own counsel. To be fair, it has to go outside, so there is going to be considerable legal fees and expense that's going to be associated with that. I mean, what we've got here is the exception in section 104 of the charter, which talks about the sections on conflict do not apply if one or more of the following circumstances apply. B, in the case of a matter that relates to a local, C, the matter relates to remuneration, expense, or benefits payable to one or more council members in relation to their duties as council members. And for Metro Vancouver, it says the city has to appoint their representatives to Metro Vancouver, and there is a similar exception for Metro Vancouver to talk about voting for your own compensation. So I think, I mean, in summary, my position is the motion as it stands isn't going anywhere. All that will come back is a general discussion of the issues or surrounding conflict of interest. It doesn't refer to, it doesn't refer to the background up top. It doesn't talk about Metro Vancouver. It doesn't talk about TransLink. It doesn't talk about ECOM or any of the others. So I don't frankly know where it's going. If you want to be specific, if you want to investigate something specific, say it, and then let's get it on the floor. Councillor Heed.
I intentionally did not want to be specific. I want generalities referred to here so we can have, and I know our solicitor is not an expert in ethics and conflict of interest. Now, you're going by a very defined conflict under the charter, and we know there are, for example, if someone breached closed counsel, unless there's pecuniary gain, there's nothing you can really do to that person. That's what my understanding of the charter. And I guess Mayor, yes, there's going to be a cost. Yes, there are people that have absolute clear understanding of ethics and conflict, and if they can clear it up for us on this particular issue, how could we not do this? And I know the quandary referred to as voting, for example, it's a procedural problem that's identified under the charter. And I think our province is aware of that procedural problem. For example, if we went to the other day when we were debating this, where it could have been a 4-4 tie if someone recused themselves from it, we understand that. Maybe that's why we've got to work together more as a council so we can start to move these things through versus just trying to vote simply on it. So it was meant to be general. I'm not wanting to amend it. This is the motion that I'm putting forward. Thank you.
Call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried with Councillor Liu, the mayor. Councillor Au, are you still there?
Yes, yes,
How are you voting?
oppose.
Okay, I'm with Councillor Au opposed as well. All right, let's move on. The final item on the open agenda is to talk about this, the so-called naughty list. We're now on the naughty list. Gentlemen, what can you tell us about that? Huh? Yeah, right.
Through the chair, nothing to add at present. All we are aware is that the province intends to establish a housing target for the city. Specific target order has not yet been issued. We would anticipate that would be forthcoming.
Okay, well, I'll comment on this. I think this is yet another intrusion, though it goes back a number of months. I think it's an intrusion on our planning system that we have here in the city. I think that this is all too indicative of what the province has as its approach, that, they're going to establish some number. Now, I've read at least a dozen times where the Minister of Housing or the Premier have talked about the province, talked about Richmond, showing how this is done and showing how we know how to densify, and we've been doing what has been expected or hoped for from us. So I don't know why we're now on the naughty list. There must be something behind it, whatever. And Burnaby, I mean, really? Burnaby. And Coquitlam. I mean, these are the cities that really have been doing everything they can to grow and to densify as expected. So there you go. Councillor Hobbs.
Yeah, thanks, and through the chair. Well, I'm sure additional edicts from on high will solve the housing crisis, so I look forward to that. I just want to mention a couple numbers that were in an article that I just read recently. And Metro Vancouver requires some 230,457 new homes to be built between 2022 and 2026, and they hit a peak of construction on average of only 23,424 units Anyway, it goes on and it dissects all the different communities. But the 35-year high of 33,000 home completions in 2023 declined to 28,000 in 2024. And my point would be this: thank you for the edict, but the market is much bigger than that. There's financial considerations, financing considerations for developers, land costs, personnel costs, material costs, and edicts aren't helping, and they aren't helping us work it out in a collaborative way. So I'm sure it'll help. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So a while back, we made a housing needs assessment for here in Richmond that broke it down literally line by line, what our need is for affordable housing going now and into the future. Maybe we should do a notification to the province saying we have requirements of you, that you must address these critical needs, especially when BC Housing has people sitting on a waiting list for like 6 to 10 years without any chance of getting housing. And when I look at the debacle that's happening at Rosewood, where instead of getting twice as much affordable housing, they're going to make half of it market housing. So maybe it's time for us to clearly state to them what our needs are and what our targets are for the province.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'll follow up on that comment, and that I believe the response needs to go back to the housing minister and to ask him about his targets. And I believe he set the targets, didn't he?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, presently we do not have a target order. The press release that accompanied the announcement indicated that we can anticipate the target will be approximately 75% of the city's housing needs report referenced by Councillor Day. That target will therefore be potentially around 1,900 units per year.
Okay, but given the way they've come about it to suggest, and given what the feds have said, I think it requires them to shake their heads a little bit. The other thing but I still think they need to go back to, we talk about streamlining our planning process, which we have to do yet, but more importantly, one of the things that is hindering development, other than the economy, the bank loans and all that jazz, is the barriers that are put into place. So what is the province going to do to help reduce the barriers? The federal government came up with an accelerator fund, and they don't get enough credit for it because we got significant dollars, and we were able to use that, and I believe we're putting it into back to the developers through staff, et cetera. So we're using it wisely, and that is a help. That helps reduce barriers, if you wish. What are they putting forward to help us achieve those 1,900 homes, or what you mentioned, Coquitlam, Vancouver, whatever? I think I have the answer, but it'd be nice to have it in writing. I can do it this way. I just made it. Okay?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for letting us know, and good comments from everyone around the table. People definitely have a lot of opinions about this, and it's been tough. So, I mean, I think that they're going to put everybody on the list. I think it's just going through in stages, and that we were in the fourth wave. I think it was the fourth, right? Shows that we're not too naughty, but I just hope that you talk to them about what kind of housing they're talking about, because we're doing our OCP and we're going to be trying to reach our housing targets, and if it's just building houses, building condos for the sake of building condos. We've been hearing that there's thousands of unsold units in Vancouver. I just checked Realtor.ca, and in Richmond alone, there's 1,333 condos for sale. So, we don't need to keep building more condos if they're not selling. We obviously need to diversify. We've shown that we've worked with the builders and come up with some more flexibility around the SSMUHs, and we're getting applications coming forward for that, so that's working. It's working for our community, and we're looking at things in our OCP that are going to hopefully encourage rental housing, which is what we need. And I agree with the comments of Councillor Day. I mean, a few years ago, we heard from Mr. Eby that they were going to be expropriating land near SkyTrain stations to build affordable housing. Yet, on 9 acres that they already own, they're not increasing a single unit of actual affordable housing tied to income. They are reducing the size of the affordable housing units and building market housing on provincially owned land. I mean, if we can't build affordable housing on provincially owned land, we got a serious problem. They've got a serious problem. And so, yeah, I think we're doing well. I think you're going to go along as you do and work with them and show them all the things that we're doing and more to come.
So you say 1,900 units. Isn't that approximately our average for the last 10 years, is 1,900 units per year? Just a minute.
Yeah, to the mayor, that is correct. Yeah.
I don't know, this just sure seems like an exercise in imposing bureaucracy on the city, but who am I to know? Okay, so move to receive the report for information. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We're now adjourned, and we will go, the next one is our Finance Committee. I'll call that to order. May I have a motion on the minutes? Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. And the financial information on the first quarter? Moved and seconded. Cindy, anything to add?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Annual report highlights, et cetera. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Active capital projects, financial update. Jenny Ho, moved and seconded. Anything to add to your report?
No, to the Worship, staff has nothing further to add.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Little Island, the first quarter financials. Anything to add, Alan?
Nothing to add,
Okay,
Your Worship.
so someone want to move it? Moved and seconded. Discussion, all those in favor, any opposed, that's carried. And the Oval, financial information. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Jerry, anything to add? Right? All those in favor, any opposed, that is carried. And we are now adjourned. So the next meeting is actually the open council meeting to do with, let me just rearrange. Sorry? Special council meeting to do with the Oval AGM and Little Island AGM. So I'll call it back to order on the shareholder resolutions for the Oval. So is it moved? Someone want to move it? Moved and seconded. Councillor Heed.
So I have several questions with respect to the audit, the year-end audit. Are you entertaining them at this particular point?
About the audit, about the financial statements, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, not the quarterly, but in our package, we did get information regarding the Richmond Olympic Oval Corporation Independent Auditors Report for the year end of 2024.
Okay, well, you can ask your questions. I'll ask Jerry and Rick to come back up. So that's moved and seconded. Go ahead with your questions.
And we'll bring up some historical.
Just hang on a sec. The more I'm thinking about this, all we're doing is receiving those financial statements that were approved by the company's board of directors. That's all we're doing.
So here's correct me if I'm wrong, you recall last time was your fourth quarter reporting out to us in council where we were asking questions. Now we get the year-end audited report from KPMG, and we don't ask any questions on it.
So, through your worship, if I could just clarify, the board approved our financial statements, and we did bring our audited financial statements to council first week of May. So we did take our year-end audited KPMG statements to council At the same time, the city brought their consolidated statements along with the other subsidiaries.
All right? So we've been there, done that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of, and maybe if I can get Mr. Chong just to comment with respect to that. I'm kind of a little bewildered as to at the end of at the end of May, this now comes to us when supposedly we already did it.
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, this is the AGM, the resolutions from the AGM brought forward to you.
So you're saying, Mr. Chong, that we already had a copy of this, we already discussed the year end from KPMG?
Yes, on the audit, yeah.
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, it was brought in the May Finance Committee along with the cities and the other, all the subsidiary corps of the city also.
So if you've got any questions, I'm sure these gentlemen could have a conversation with you.
Well, I do have some questions, Mayor, but if we've already canvassed this, we already did it. I'm not going to waste everyone's time here, but I do have several questions because I did go over this when we start talking about various things, and I see the chair and the vice chair and other members of the Olympic Oval Corp here, and I just think the opportunity to have Mr. Panach and his people talk about it. Where I'm going on this, Mayor, is trying to reduce or come to some understanding how we could reduce the yearly subsidiary that we actually give the Oval and have a better understanding, for example, of the assets of the Oval, because I believe they have $9 million sitting in an investment account also. So that's where I'm going on this, Mayor. I don't know if this is not procedural at this time, but I'll leave it to your call.
Yeah, I think you're best off, if you got that kind of question, a private conversation with them or with members of the board would clarify anything you've got on your mind.
I just think it's a matter for the public who are paying particular attention to the Richmond Olympic Oval Corp, given the fact that there's a substantial amount of taxpayer dollar that goes into the Corp annually, and a bit of an understanding with respect to that. That's fine, Mayor. I'll leave it to you.
Councillor Day.
Well, as I'm no financial whiz, and I'm the first to admit that, but there are some staggering numbers in here, like the investing activities, net purchase of investments. It was in 2023 minus 621,000, and this year plus 935. So I think that we owe a really big thank you to the board for turning things around. We changed the board for good reason, and I believe this report confirms that we made the right decision, a year and a half ago.
All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Luluaden Energy Corporation, moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, we're now adjourned. And I'll call the closed General Purposes Committee meeting to order. May I have a motion on closure compliance?